From translation, TLB, the Living Bible. This 16th day of the year. Today we are reading passages Genesis 46 to 47. Genesis chapter 46, verses 1 to 34. So Jacob set out for Egypt with all his possessions, and he arrived at Beersheba, where he offered sacrifices to the God of his father, Isaac. That night God spoke to him in a vision, saying, "Jacob, Jacob." "Yes, Lord," he replied. "I am God, the God of your father," the Lord said. "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph will close your eyes when you die." Then Jacob left Beersheba, and his sons loaded their father, their little children, and their wives into the wagons Pharaoh had sent for them. They took their livestock and all the possessions they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they went to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him. He took everything he owned to Egypt, his sons and grandsons, his daughters and granddaughters, and all his descendants. These were the names of the people who descended from Jacob and his sons as they went to Egypt. Reuben, Jacob's oldest son. The descendants of Reuben, Hanok, Pulu, Hezron, and Carmi. The descendants of Simeon. Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. The descendants of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The descendants of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah, but and Onan had died in the land of Canaan. The descendants of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The descendants of Issachar, Tola, Puvah, Jashub, and Shimron. The descendants of Zebulun, Serd, Elon, and Jaleel. These were the descendants of Leah and Jacob who went to Egypt with him, as well as his daughter Dinah. In all there were 33. The descendants of Gad, Ziphion, Haggi, Shuni, Esban, Iri, Arodi, and Arali. The descendants of Asher. Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Beriah, and Serah. The descendants of Beriah, Heber, and Malchiel. These were the descendants of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Leah, and there were 16 in all. The descendants of Rachel's servant Bilhah. Dan and Naphtali, the descendants of Rachel's sons, Joseph and Benjamin. Joseph had 2 sons born to him in Egypt, Manasseh and Ephraim. Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, was their mother, the descendants of Benjamin. Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehai, Rosh, Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. These were the descendants of Rachel, and there were 14 in all. The descendants of Jacob's servant Zilpah, Gad and Asher. These were the descendants of Leah's servant Zilpah, and there were 7 in all. The descendants of Jacob's wife Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. These were the descendants of Rachel's servant Bilhah, and there were 7 in all. All those who went with Jacob to Egypt, not counting Jacob's wives, were 66 in all, including Joseph's 2 sons who were born to him in Egypt. The members of Jacob's family, which went to Egypt, were 70 in all. Jacob sent Judah ahead to meet Joseph and to get directions to the region of Goshen. So they arrived in the land of Goshen. Joseph prepared his chariot and went to meet his father, Israel, in Goshen. As soon as they met, Joseph threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen you with my own eyes and know that you are still alive." And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's family, "I will go to Pharaoh and tell him, 'My father and brothers, with their flocks and herds and everything they own, have come out of the land of Canaan and are now in Goshen. We are shepherds, just as our ancestors were,' you can tell Pharaoh. 'And we have brought our flocks and herds here to live, because the shepherds of Egypt are despised by the Egyptians. When you meet Pharaoh, tell him, "We have come to live here in Egypt, for the shepherds here are despised by the Egyptians, and we cannot continue to live in Canaan. Then Pharaoh will let you settle in the region of Goshen, for the Egyptians detest shepherds." Genesis chapter 47, verses 1 to 31. Then Joseph went to Pharaoh and told him, "My father and brothers have arrived from the land of Canaan with all their flocks and herds, and they are in the region of Goshen." He chose 5 of his brothers to present to Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked the brothers, "What is your occupation?" And they replied, "We are shepherds, as were our ancestors. We have come to live here in this land, for there is no pasture for our flocks in Canaan, for the famine is very severe in that land. We ask therefore that you allow us to live in the region of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and brothers have come to you, and the land of Egypt is open before them. Let them choose the best land in the country and live there. Tell them to choose any part of Goshen if they prefer." Then Joseph brought his father Jacob in to meet Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked Jacob, "How old are you?" Jacob replied, "I have traveled this earth for 130 years. My years have been few and difficult, far shorter than my ancestors' lives." Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh again and went out from his presence. So Joseph assigned the best land of Egypt, the region of Ramesses, to his father and his brothers, and he settled them there, just as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided food for his father and his brothers in amounts appropriate to the number of their children, supplying them with all the food they needed. Meanwhile, the famine became so severe that all the food in Egypt and Canaan was used up. The Egyptians began to suffer because of the famine. When the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of food, they cried to Pharaoh for food. "Go to Joseph," Pharaoh told them, "and do whatever he tells you to do." So when the famine spread over the land of Egypt, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh replied, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." "But we have no money," they exclaimed. "All our livestock and everything we own has been given to you in exchange for grain." "What more can we give you? Bring your livestock," Joseph replied. "I will sell you food in exchange for your livestock, since your money is gone." So they brought him their livestock in exchange for food that year. The following year they came to him again and said, "My lord, we have given all our money to you, and we have no more livestock or crops to give you in exchange for food. We are destitute and have no more money. What shall we do?" they asked. "We have no more money, and all our livestock and crops have been given to you. All we have left is our bodies and our land. Buy us and our land in exchange for food, and we will be the slaves of Pharaoh. Just give us seed so that we may live and not die, and the land will not remain empty." So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, because every Egyptian sold his fields to pay for food. The land now belonged to Pharaoh, and Joseph reduced the people to slavery from one end of Egypt to the other. But he did not purchase the land of the priests, because Pharaoh had granted them a living allowance. So they were not required to sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Look, today I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Here is seed for you to plant in the fields. As soon as you harvest it, give 1/5 to Pharaoh. The rest will be yours for seed for the fields, and as food for you and your households and your children." So Joseph made a law that continues in effect in Egypt today. 1/5 of all the crops must be given to Pharaoh. The only exception is the land belonging to the priests, which was not sold to Pharaoh. Meanwhile, the people of Israel settled in the region of Goshen, where they acquired property and were fruitful and multiplied in great numbers. Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 years, so he lived a total of 147 years. When the time came for Israel to die, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "Please, if you have found favor in my eyes, put your hand under my thigh and swear to me with honesty that you will not bury me in Egypt. Rather, when I die, please take my body back to the land of Canaan and bury me in the cave where my ancestors are buried." Joseph said, "I will do as you say." And Israel bowed and worshipped at the head of his bed.